Welcome to Life Choices. We're so glad that you've joined us today, and you're going to be glad that you joined us too, because I have a great guest today. Her name is Joan Peck, and Joan is an author of many books, and today we're going to talk to her about her series called Death on the Strip. And so we're going to talk about the series and what happens in the series, and you're going to love it. I've read these books and they are amazing. So welcome, Joan. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us, you were like a self-help author, and you wrote a lot of self-help books, and they were very, very popular. And then one day you wrote a novel. What made you make the choice to change and to write novels?
Well, it was kind of interesting, as life always is. I was invited to a seminar, and at the seminar there was a gentleman from California who wanted to take books and have them made into movies. And when we were allowed to get up and to talk about our upcoming book. Well, when it was my turn, I was too shy to get up and speak to him about it. And as fate would have it, I had lunch with him, with a group of people. And afterwards, I said to him, could I please, give you my idea for a book? I'm trying to think of the word. That's why I'm fumbling here. I'm trying to think.
That's quite all right.
Yes. And anyhow, he said, of course, sure. And I came up with this on the spur of the moment about a 32-year-old psychic who reads tarot cards, and every time the death card comes up, there's a murder, and she has to solve it. And she has a grandmother who died and whose spirit is around her, and she has her silky dog pup, Sweet Pea, in her life. And he loved it. He says, okay, so now you have to write the book. And that's how this all started.
Now, how did you come up with this character and all of these scenarios? I mean, where did that come from?
I don't know. It was kind of like a gift. It just really came to me. And I just sat down and to be honest with you, I wasn't sure I could do it. So it took me a while to pull it together and then get it out there. I thought, yeah, not too bad. Then I had some person critique it who said, no, you have to do more with this. And so it's like any writing, Judy, which you know. You write it and then it's edit, edit, edit. And change it again and edit, edit, edit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's that.
But I'm just fascinated that you came up with the characters you did in the book. I know one of the fellows that was in the book. I just fell in love with him.
Romano?
Yes, yes. And you had, yeah. I mean, you describe everybody so accurately. Well, can I say accurately? I don't know who they are in real life or if they were somebody, but you describe them to the point that you think you know them. When I read, I felt like I know them already. I actually put my thoughts of who your characters are onto somebody I know, just kind of like
fun.
Made me feel like, yeah, I know this person. And because you set these in Las Vegas, they become very real.
Yes.
Yeah, especially for those of us who live here.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've covered everything from murder to sex trafficking to drugs to what else?
Well, to romance, of course.
A lot of romance.
Lots of romance. A little bit of humor, particularly with Romana. For those of you who have read my books, you would know who Romana was. For those who haven't yet, he is one of the characters in the book, and he is a chef. And his real name was John, and he decided he needed a better name to be a chef, so he picked the name of the cheese he liked best, which was Romano cheese. And that's how he got his name. So
that's
just
fascinating.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. So there are 4 of these in the Death Card series. There's this one, Death on the Strip, and then Death on the Lake, and then what comes next?
Death Returns. And the one that's just out now is called Death in the Shadows.
And the same characters are carried throughout. Is that
Yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when we finish the first book, we need to read the second book to find out what happens to these people. Is that right?
Well, it really is. And what I did is took this fellow's advice when I pitched my idea, and to kind of see it as a series, a TV series. So when I write, I actually see what I'm writing, if you know what I'm saying.
In your mind?
In my mind, so that I can see where they're going, how to move them, and how to write the words so that you see them moving along in whatever scene they're in.
Into the next segment of their lives.
Yes.
So when we finish reading the one book, I know so many times I read a book and I fall so in love with the characters and what's happening with them, and then it's over. And I want to know something more about them,
Yes.
and you've done that here. You've given us 4 opportunities to get to know these characters better and better. Now, did you choose to do that, or did that just happen?
At first, I was going to write one novel. And then it was so big that they said, well, you've got to, I was advised to put it into 2 books, which is, Death on the Strip and Death at the Lake. And then once you write 2 books, you need to write 3, and then 4, and then there's 5, and then there's 6, and all of that. So, but she's a great character. I really like Rosalie Bennett is her name, and you want her to be your friend. I mean, she just is a neat gal. I think throughout all the books, I've really tried to have you engage with her so you can, and you can relate to her, because she's in this business of tarot cards and reading, and then she gets involved in trying to find the killer, and she gets so involved in it, and she makes mistakes like you and I would make. And so it's kind of fun because you can relate to her.
Yes, and I think a lot of people can relate to her. She's
Yes.
very, very real.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the book.
Well, through all the books, and you and I know what our belief systems are and whatever. And I believe very strongly in trying to help all sex human trafficking. So there is a little bit of that all the way through all the books. It's something that is dear to my heart.
Well, it has to be brought to the public's attention too. I think
does.
so many people are not
Yes.
aware of what is
Yeah.
going on today.
But they don't want the harshness of it a lot of times. So that's why I've covered it up with mystery and romance and everything else. But through all the books, you are always given the hope that whatever situation you're in, you can get out of. You can do it, and of course some do die in these books.
Well, they have to,
for some,
because
not
somebody
so
has to be
lucky.
murdered, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But I think we as writers have a definite responsibility to mentor our readers in kindness. We live in such a harsh, difficult world today. And I think it's time to go back in everything that we do, whether it's movies, whether it's books, whether it's music, is to go back to some of the kindness we used to have in our lives. We are so divided. And I think it's important to bring that romance in, that kindness, the goodness, the accomplishments of doing good. And that's what I've tried to do in the books.
Yes, I think you've done that quite successfully. Having been a self-help author before, and not just self-help, but you wrote about the chakras, and then you wrote a book with your son
Right.
who had passed.
Right.
And it was about addiction.
Yes.
Now, do you cover some of the addiction issues in this series?
Yes, and I also have a standalone book that is coming out that is about that.
What is the name of that book?
And that's called Angels Out of the Dark.
Ooh, I like that title.
And it's about a couple whose daughter is murdered by mistake, really. And they receive a large sum of money. in compensation for it. And they decided to use that money to help other women off the streets. Their daughter was accused of being a prostitute on the street and killed, and it was mistaken identity. And so
Have some water, Joan.
I'm sorry.
That's not your fault. It happens to all of us.
Does it? It's
Yes.
allergy season.
It's allergy season for sure.
So they've picked 4 women off the street to help other people, women off the street, is really what it's about. And it's fascinating.
I'm just fascinated with you and how you are fascinated with all of these subjects of drugs, sex trafficking, murder. I'm fascinated with how you create these scenarios in your mind, because I mean, I know that your son had drug problems, but the rest of your life is so positive. I don't know that you know anybody that's been murdered or people that are being sex trafficked, but you've done so much research and so much homework in order to make this. What caused you to choose those subjects to write about?
I think it all boils down to children. I think that we have such a responsibility to help children. And with my own son dying of an overdose, I felt in many ways that I had failed as a mother. And so when I looked at that, and I had to clear myself of that guilt. And when I looked at that, then I really thought, you know, Jay and I had something to say to others about how you treat each other in kindness, how you really can do so much, you know, beginning at an early age to make sure that children feel loved, that they feel respected, and that they feel safe. A lot of addiction has to do with not feeling safe. And so, you know, I wanted to write about that. And again, I try to put that in my books, but it really boils down to our need to take care of children, because they are the ones that don't have a voice.
Right.
And yet, you and I know people who have young children, and the children have them tied up, you know, in little knots, doing whatever they want. But basically, I mean, whether we have small children or not, you and I at this point, we still have an obligation to, you know, to show them whenever we can, you know, how to be kind, how to be good, how to be fair. Yeah. So.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
For over 25 years, Judy Morio has studied the lives and habits of highly motivated and successful people. She has unraveled the mystery behind the illusion that only a chosen few are allowed success, and has become a respected authority on high-level performance, personal development, and self-esteem. Judy has now translated her wealth of knowledge and practical experience into a meaningful and motivating guide. Writing in a comfortable, conversational style, she gives you simple, usable techniques that you can apply to your everyday world. It's like having afternoon tea with your best friend. Get your copies at www.judymorio.com. That's www.judimoreo.com.
Welcome back. This is Life Choices, and we are talking with Joan Peck, who is the author of the Death Card series of books. And it's an excellent, excellent mystery series that I think you're going to enjoy. Joan, when you wrote these books, how many of these characters were based on people you really know in real life?
Actually, none.
Absolutely none?
No, not at all. It was kind of fun to develop them. As you're writing along, and these books are all exciting because, as many of my readers have said, I never would have guessed the ending. So you're always, you know, surprised at the end, which of course is what you want. But writing with the characters, they take on their own personality. It's very interesting. I think when we write, particularly fiction books, I think we do channel well, actually all books. but, but at any rate, when you're writing, scenes become, their own scene. I
So do you feel like kind of something takes over you?
kind of. It's like a movie, and so you see, well, I'll go from this scene now. What would they do next? And then you go from this scene. So I never know how it's going to be. I have an idea of the ending, of where I want it to end. So I begin, but in the middle, it's just all, surprises, really. I mean, some of these characters come out and you think, oh my God, I had no idea this character would be here. Or I'll write about something and think I had never planned for that. And it's just very interesting because you're creating all the time. And you just by somebody writing down what somebody says, you create something else. So it is, it is very exciting and very, it's a nice way to write, It's a pantser type of writing. You go by the seat of your pants.
They call that pantser?
It is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference in writing fiction versus nonfiction?
Well, that's a great question.
Because I know you've written both.
Yes, great question. Because when you're writing nonfiction or spiritual books, you're really trying to write in the book for somebody else. Here's how you do it, type of thing. Takes 7 steps to become happier. And then you teach them that. You're kind of in a teaching mode. Mm-hmm. You're writing for others. But when you're writing fiction, you're really writing for yourself, which is very. And you have to be happy with what you're writing, as far as so many of us think, well, I'm going to be the next bestseller. Well, there are 1 million books written, new books every year. So for you to be the next bestseller, you better have a good marketing person.
Well, I think you should get a good marketing person because these books are wonderful. And
Thank you.
I'd love to see them be bestsellers.
Thank
I really
you.
would, because they're so fantastic.
I think the characters are great. Anywhere from, even the dog. I get some of my readers that say, I love the dog. The dog is so cute. And, that is always a good plus.
Well, now the dog is named after your dog.
Yes.
So
yes,
that is one
yes.
character that you know.
Oh, yes. And actually, that's true. And people have said, who know Sweet Pea, oh my gosh, you got her down completely, because she's a little fuss budget.
Yeah. So the dog is named after your dog, and in real life, and that's sort of exciting. But the other characters, they're all characters in your head.
Yeah.
So when you get up in the morning and you go to write, do you have like a writing routine? That
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So when you go to do that every day, you sit down to do your writing.
Yeah.
Do you think, oh, this is work, or do you get up and say, can't wait to put down what they're going to do next, or do you think, I can't wait to see what they're going to do next?
All of it. All of it. But when I get into the shower, as we're humans, we know that being near water can expand our energy. And I often get ideas in the shower. And if I'm really stuck at night, I've learned to ask my guides for guidance. Gosh, I'm stuck here. I don't know where to go next, whatever. And oftentimes I'll wake up and have an idea. And then there are days and you think, oh my God, this is like writing another, I don't know what, another composition for English class, you know what I mean? It's not exciting at all. But most days it's great, to sit down and you get going. And you have to be kind to yourself. People we're all driven, I'd say, people who really produce books. And we want to get so many words in, and so, and be on a schedule and whatever. And you have to be kinder to yourself, because then it becomes work.
Yes, it's hard to say, okay, today I'm going to write 3,000 words.
Yes.
And make them have meaning, and make them be something that people will want to jump up and buy.
Yes.
And 'cause I think that puts pressure on you, doesn't it?
It does. And I try not to do that. And there are times when I have done it, and it's like, it's just exhausting, rather than having more fun with it, and that's for sure. Yeah,
We often hear people talk about writer's block.
yes,
Do you get that?
yes.
And what do you do to get out of it?
Well, it's just like I'll open myself up to ideas in the shower, or I do ask my guides at night, to help me out with this. So, and it works, and you don't write until you're ready to write. So, if you want to keep writing, you've got to come up with the ideas and all of that.
So do you ever just go in front of that computer and sit there for a while and not do anything but sit there?
A couple times, yep. Yeah.
Or
a
do you
few times.
find that when you start writing, then the ideas come more?
I would say that's true. I think the idea of the characters, because all my characters in the book, they're nice characters, they're strong characters, they have a sense of humor. They have, particularly when they are in Santa Fe, there's an old Indian woman, grandmother is her name, and she has pearls of wisdom. And so it's interesting because when you write about her, she has her own voice. It's so strange because they each have their own way of talking, own way of thinking, their own personalities. And so it's almost like if somebody were talking, they would talk in a different tone. Do you know what I mean? So that they each are very separate with their own personalities.
And so their dialogue becomes very different.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I just find it fascinating because, as you know, I write self-help books, which
Yes,
are all
I do.
how-to, and I don't write about characters. And so I now that I've been reading your books, I'm thinking, could I do that?
Of
I
course
wonder
you
if the
could.
people out there in my audience, if they're wondering, could I do that? And so it's like, did you go to training for this, or did you just decide to do it?
No, well, this goes back a long way. When my sister, I have a twin sister, and when we were in our 20s, I decided I wanted to write books. I've always been interested in writing. And so she decided, let's write together. So we wrote some short stories together, and we actually came in third. Do you remember Red Book magazine?
Oh yes,
Well,
they
we
had
can-
contests.
Yeah, we came in third for one. But
Wow.
what we discovered beyond that is we write very differently.
Ah.
She has a lighter touch than I do, I'd say. She's very successful writing romance books, novels. And so I've always wanted to write, but having 3 children and then being divorced and being responsible for 3 children and whatever, and always had to work. So it wasn't really until, I retired that I really began writing.
When you
Yeah.
say she writes lighter than I do, and I know she's very famous, she writes romance novels. I'm wondering, do you think that has to do with the background or the experience or the things that you've been through that cause you to maybe want to put more meaning into what you're writing, or to deliver a message to the world, to help people? Is there something that pulls inside of you that says, I've got to do more, I've got to be more?
Yes, because she also can have words of wisdom, but even as kids, I would see maybe the darker side of things, maybe, would be a way of putting it.
Yeah, but I ask about that because you came from the same environment. You're
Yes.
twins,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yet you have both a desire to write, but totally different styles.
Yes.
And I find that interesting with
Yeah.
people who grow up in the same households,
Yeah.
with the same parents, with the same environment, and yet they do similar things, but very differently. And I wonder if the universe gives us different messages. If we actually, I had a guest on my show the other day, and he
Yeah.
was talking about downloading, how we download from the universe.
Yeah, we do.
And maybe are you more in touch with the universe, or does the
I think it simply boils down we're on different journeys. You
oh,
know?
that's a good way to
Yes.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
On totally different journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different things I had before I came here, different things I had to learn. Apparently, I had to learn a lot.
You had to learn a lot of lessons
I did. Yeah,
in this
did.
lifetime.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, still learning.
I find this fascinating. I've had several guests recently that have talked about before they came to this place and choosing to come to Earth, and about where they're going in their next life. And I don't know that I've ever given it a lot of thought, but I know you talk about your guides. What are guides?
Well, guides are your spiritual guides, and they come, and everybody has one. You know, in this I try to say to people, and I'm glad you brought it up, because for any of our listeners, particularly during this time, they need to know they're never alone. We are never alone. But we have to open ourselves up, and by that I mean simply being aware of different energies around us. You know, when you can speak to somebody or talk to the universe, which I do, and know that you're never alone. That God, the universe, whatever name you want to give it, always wants you to be well, wants you to be happy, is always, you know, all the positives for you. It's we humans who kind of mess that up a little bit, you know.
So if we knew we had a guide, if we knew that God wanted only the best for us,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't have any reason to be scared or unhappy.
Right. Right. Happiness is a little different, but certainly not being afraid, you know. I mean, it breaks my heart to realize that so many people are committing suicide today. I know we're getting way off from,
I know,
the
subject.
mystery books.
Yeah.
But, you know, and part of it is in the books, by the way, for anyone who's listening. It's definitely worth it, in my opinion, to pick up the books to hear what some grandmother says,
Right.
what some of these other characters say, because there's always little nuggets in there. But it is amazing, breaks my heart to hear how many people are committing suicide because they feel so alone or afraid, or they're wondering, you know, what's the point?
Right, right.
And I think with everything that's going on today, there isn't anyone who hasn't questioned what's the point,
I know.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's why with these books and even our conversation today, you know, I'm really trying to, you know, make a softer world with my thoughts.
I think you've achieved that, because while the books address so many subjects that are really kind of uncomfortable for people, at the same time, because you make things into winners, you make people into winners, you make some of these characters really become stars, and
Yeah.
and you turn their lives around. It gives us hope. It gives
Yes.
us a feeling of yes, that's the way it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad she did that.
Yeah.
That was so cool that she did that.
Yeah.
And I think in life we want to feel that way about people. We want to support other people and
Yeah.
help them become more successful. And right now, while, like you say, while things are so hateful, some people are really hateful out there, it's so good to read about a character that's so positive in so many ways.
I think so. Because we haven't learned conflict resolution. And if we could teach that to little kids, we don't allow somebody to have an idea different than ours.
I know.
I mean, we don't. No.
It's-
You're either here or you're there. You know?
There's no in between.
No in between.
Well, Joan, it's been a real pleasure having you here today. Would you tell my audience where they can get your books and
Sure.
about where they can get your book that's coming up very soon? And when
Okay.
that book comes out, we'll have you back on and talk about it.
I would love it. You can find my books on Amazon. You can get them in every different site there is, book site, Barnes & Noble, all of that. And you can also go to www.deathcardseries.com, And on my website, you can order the books from there. That takes you right to the Amazon link. Also, for anybody who signs up for my newsletter, they can download for free Book 1, Death on the Strip.
Oh, awesome. That's wonderful of you to do
Yeah.
that. Of course, you know, if you download book number 1, you're going to be hooked.
I hope.
You're going to be
Yeah.
hooked and want all the rest of them too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Joan, for being here today. It's always such a pleasure to be around you and to spend time with you, and I've learned so much from you over the years that I'm just thrilled that you could be my guest today.
I am thrilled to
So-
be here, and it's always fun to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today at Life Choices. We really appreciate you being here and hope you'll be with us for one of our upcoming episodes. And remember, make good choices. Choices. We have choices. They are the source of the success in our lives. When things happen to us, we can choose to believe they happened for a reason. We can discover opportunities in the most difficult experiences if we are willing to look for them. It is what we choose to think about each experience that determines how we respond to it. How we respond determines whether or not we find richer, more purposeful, more joyful lives. We are the only ones who can choose our attitudes and the principles that we live by. Choose well, my friends. Choose well.